Dear students, welcome to Army Public School PMA Resource Network. Before we start our today's subject, English Literature, please subscribe this page and click on bell icon. I am Rahatulain Malik, the teacher of English Literature. In our today's subject, we are going to study Introduction to Novel, listening of audio track 1, that is teacher's narration, reading of the chapter. Afterwards, you will be recognizing the traits of characters. Then we will discuss the use of vocabulary journal. Right, students. So we will start with the definition of novel. It is defined as a long work of fictional prose. Now this definition contains two different phrases. First is long work and second is fictional prose. Now one of the characteristics of novel is that it is a long story, not a shorter one, right? So it is a long story. What is fictional prose? Fictional means that it is written as a story that might not be completely real, right? And prose is usual manner or way of writing that is different from poetry. So novel is actually a long work. Simply you can say that it is a long story with dialogues, right? A novel has all of the fictional elements of a short story. Now above mentioned thing is that it is a long work, means that it is different from short story in its length. But how is it similar to short story? That it has got all the elements of a story or fictional elements, right? And the major difference between short story and long story is the length only. That a novel is a long story while the other thing is shorter one. Otherwise, the elements are same in both the works. Right, so components or elements of a novel. Every novel has these 5 elements. So which story would be a novel? What are the things that are necessary to have been in a novel? The very first is setting. That there must be a setting of a novel. You see, whenever we watch cartoons, we see there are some characters in those cartoons, the people who are playing or who are taking away the story, taking along the story, and then there is a place where the action is happening. So that particular thing is setting. Similarly, in novel, we have setting. What is it? When and where the story takes place. Means the time when a story has taken place and where the place where the story has taken place. Now, what are the characters? The people are some animals the story is about. I have just given you example of cartoons that you see there are some animals in the cartoons, there are some people in the cartoons, so those people or animals are the characters. Now what is plot? It is the most important element of a novel. Plot is a description of what happens in the story, all the events in a story, all the happening of the story in an order, in an organized way is called a plot. I repeat, all the events that happen in a story are collectively called plot. Now, there is a theme in novel as well. The lesson the writer of the story is trying to teach the reader, that is, the message he wants to convey or he is trying to convey is the message or the theme, right? Point of view, that is, who is telling the story, means the writer, the person, the animal, whoever is telling the story, what he thinks about that, all the setting, all the events, right? First person point of view uses I. Whenever the first person is speaking, telling the story, or if you find I as the main speaker in your Novel, it means that is the first person and is told by one of the characters. So I is used by one of the characters in the story, right? Third person point of view uses an unnamed narrator, like who knows what all or most of the stories character are thinking, right? So unnamed means the character, the person, the animal, whatsoever he or she is, it is not named, rather an unknown or even if he or she is known, he or she is unnamed, right? So a novel starts from somewhere and it ends somewhere, right? A novel is a journey of a novel is just like climbing up and climbing down the mountain. Journey of novel is also called plot structure. Okay, the very start of the novel is called exposition, right? It is the starting paragraph, it is the starting, you see, group of paragraphs where we meet the characters and the primary situation or the setting. In exposition, we come to know who the characters are and where is the story taking place, right? Now, exposition leads the novel to rising action, means the narrative and dramatic tension build. Narrative and dramatic tension means that the story is taken to some other towards a conflict. A problem is being introduced, right? That has to be solved. Then this rising action gets to the climax, the top of the mountain, right? Where the tension peaks, means the tension, the conflict or the problem gets best of it. It is the worst ever thing happening at this particular point, right? So at this particular point, when the problem is being, you see, tensed, when it gets to its peak, what happens that the characters in the story, they try to solve it. So the top of the problem lies here and the solution is also devised here. So with the solution, the story now climbs down, and this climbing down is called the falling action, which means narrative and dramatic tension ease. Now these are the corresponding or the opposite things. Here the tension, the problem is built, here it is being solved. It is not completely solved but being solved. Similarly, here it has started building and it has come to its peak here. Similarly, the solution to it has been devised here and now the solution is being implemented, being practiced, and then the story is moving down towards the resolution, or we say conclusion, where the story comes to an end or a close. So this is journey of a novel. Similar to climbing up and climbing down the mountain. Exposition, the very start, climax, the top of it, and resolution, the end of it. And rising action, the events that are taking the story to the top, and falling action, the events that are taking the story towards the end or resolution. I hope it is clear to you. Now, components of the novel. What are the components, basic components of the novel, or the elements of the novel? So basic elements of a novel, that is the plot. What is a plot? Plot of any story usually begins with what we call the exposition. If you could see, I had just explained you exposition, that is the introduction. So plot of the story, it begins with exposition. So from the very start of the novel, the plot begins. In the introductory part, we are introduced to the setting, that is where and when the story takes place, means the place and the time, the main character and sometimes other key characters. So exposition contains the setting and the main or key characters. clues to the kinds of struggles a main character is likely to face. Again, the exposition will give us a hint, a clue that how would the story proceed or what events we must expect in this story. The next stage in the plot is the rising action. So after the exposition, this is the rising action. What is rising action? This is usually a string of events in which the main character goes through all kinds of problems and challenges. We also called it conflict. So what is the next stage? That is rising action, which means that in this particular point, at this particular point, the main character faces the problems, the challenges of any kind. So we often become quite involved at this part of the plot unfolds and are keen to discover what happens next. So once the characters are facing problems and challenges, we come to know that the character must go on with some solution, right? Okay, now the rising action. Dear students, now you will have to listen to the narration that I will be conducting and you will have your novels closed with you, right? Okay, now I'll be starting it. It's chapter number 1 of The Railway Children. They were not railway children at first. They lived with their mother and father in a beautiful red brick home in London. Roberta, the oldest, was a very sweet child. Everyone called her Bobby. Peter, the middle child, wanted to be an engineer when we grew up. The youngest child, Phyllis, was always trying to be good, but always a bit clumsy. Peter's favorite toy was a train engine. He loved it more than anything else. One day, however, his toy engine broke, and Peter was very sad. Don't worry, my dear, Mother told Peter. Father will fix your toy engine when he comes home tonight. In the evening, Father arrived and Peter ran straight to him. Oh, Father, can you please help me fix my toy engine? Peter asked right away. Hmm, Father said while looking at the engine. Of course, I can help you. Let us wait until Saturday afternoon and we'll fix the engine together. Then suddenly there was a knock on the door. Ruth, the housemaid, answered the door and told Father that two gentlemen wanted to speak with him. Father went to speak to the gentleman, and after a while Ruth returned and called Mother into the study. The children were very curious. They heard the gentleman talking with Father and Mother. Then they heard the sound of goods walking down the steps and out of the front door. A little later, Mother came into the room. She was very pale and her eyes were red. It's bedtime, children, she said. Ruth will put you to bed. But you promised we could stay up late tonight with Father, said Peter. Father had to go away on business, said Mother. Come, darlings, go at once. The three children were wondering what was the matter, but they kissed her and went to sleep. Mother looked very sad, and they didn't want to upset her more. The next day, Mother was out all day until 7 in the evening. When she had her cup of tea, she said, my darlings, I want to tell you something. Those men last night did bring very bad news, and Father has to be away for some time. I'm very worried about it, and I want you all to help me and not make things harder for me. The children agreed. because they did not want to see mother looking so sad. The days passed, the mother was always out. Ruth had to leave, and Aunt Emma came to help out at home. She was very strict, and the children did not like her very much, so they didn't spend a lot of time with her. Then one day, mother announced to the children that they would be moving to a new house. My dears, everything is settled. We are going to leave this house and go live in the country, she told them. Days of packing followed. When everything was ready, they all took a cab to the railway station, and Aunt Emma waved goodbye to them. The children were quite sad to leave their home in London, but they were also very excited about their new life in the country. Now, the students, you will write. So, this is page 4 and page. After you have read the chapter, how would you recognize the traits or characteristics of characters? First, while reading the chapter, underline the difficult or new words. Any word that you find difficult or it is new to you, just underline it. Try to find out the contextual meanings of the underlined words. Now, what is contextual meanings? You don't have to look the word into dictionary. Rather, make out the meaning with the within the paragraph or within the context or background of the paragraph, and just make out any meaning that you find appropriate. Then read the chapter again and see whether you are successful in acquiring or in understanding the chapter, or you still need dictionary to look down at the meanings of the difficult or new. Now, the use of vocabulary journal. What is the last task for today? That is, you have to write the underlined words in the vocabulary journal. All the underlined are new words that are found difficult by you. You have to write them in the vocabulary journal and write synonym and antonym for each of them. For this particular purpose, you will have to consult the dictionary. So, first underline the new or difficult words, write each word in vocabulary journal, and then find out or look down or look for the meaning. The synonym means the same meaning, and antonym the opposite meaning of that word. I hope you have understood all the things. That's all for today. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for watching.